to the vertical blank generation Atari.
This is the Arcade1up Atari Centipede Legacy Edition. I've been working on trying to record the screen for weeks now. The monitor is very bright and the optimal viewing angle is directly in front of it. That is why, if you've seen other videos of this product, you've probably seen a lot of washed out blue screenshots because they're trying to shoot it from the side. I tried to alleviate this the best I could by recording this completely in the dark, from a near front-on angle, and by sitting to the left of the machine, playing at an angle. This video was recorded live, so you will hear some ambient noise. Some of it is me pressing buttons. There's also the dog, the blinds, kids, etc. First game, Asteroids. Of course, I would play this game first. Atari's 1979 best-selling coin-op and one of my all-time favorites. The placement of the buttons is not exactly correct, but you get used to it. After that, everything kind of melds into a feeling just like playing Asteroids in the arcade. What's missing is the glow of the vector monitor, which makes seeing the small shots from the UFOs very difficult unless you're in absolutely perfect conditions, like sitting on a stool directly in front of the monitor. Centipede. Centipede plays like I expected, and the trackball makes it feel honestly just like the arcade. The vertical screen is placed in the center of the monitor, and it doesn't detract from the gameplay, and I did not detect any artifacting from the display. It's a joy to play Donna Bailey's first arcade game. Crystal Castles. I'd forgotten just how cool this game was. Bentley Bear was one of Atari's first characters, and the game is a kind of a 2.5D Pac-Man played in 3 dimensions. It feels deep and satisfying with tons of interesting levels. The original trackball controls are preserved, and they are just as weird and frustrating as I recall. Still, it's fun to have it here. The colors look great, and the whole thing looks great on this monitor. Gravatar. The spiritual sequel to Lunarlander. The color vector graphics don't feel affected by the bright monitor. The gameplay, though, is just as difficult as always. It's super hardcore. Never one of my favorites in the arcade, I think I will keep coming back to this one, as the controls feel good and I'm compelled to see how far I can go. Liberator. What a surprise! A spiritual sequel to Missile Command, and it feels like a much better game. I'm not sure why it was not a hit. The large planet graphics are really fun to see, and they look gorgeous on this monitor. The gameplay is fast and furious. This is another game I know I'll find myself returning to. Lunarlander. One of Atari's first vector games. A game made exclusively for computer nerds that is so difficult, it's no surprise it was not really a hit in the arcades. It's 2001: A Space Odyssey at a time when most people wanted to just fly an X-Wing and shoot TIE fighters. I'll have to say this, it is really, really hard. And in this video, I finally landed the Lunarlander for the first time. Major Havoc. I've forgotten just how good this game plays and sounds. Beautiful color vector lines and multiple stages. There's even a little version of Super Breakout you can play between stages. This game is part shooter, part Lunarlander, part platformer. It looks and plays great. Another late stage Atari coin-up that deserves more respect than it received. Oh, and check out the ending explosion. It gives me heavy Star Wars vibes. Millipede, my new love. This game is as addictive as all heck, and I wasn't even expecting it. I was never really a fan of this in the arcade, but the ability to restart a new game at the next to last bonus level you achieve means you can keep trying for higher and higher high scores. The trackball is essential, as without it there would be no way to make the intricate dodging moves required to get away from the centipedes that have reached the lowest levels. This is why I never really got this when I played it in titles like Atari Vault or emulated. The trackball is required. To me, this may be Atari's best coin-op ever. Missile Command. Surprisingly, Missile Command is my least favorite game here. I used to love it in the arcade and on the Atari VCS, but here it pales in comparison to almost all the other games. Quite possibly it's the fire buttons, which were volcano-style buttons in the arcade, but here are 3 standard fire buttons. They're too far apart for me to be effective with them. Kind of a disappointment, as I was really looking forward to this one. Playable, but certainly does not replace having an actual arcade game. Space Duel. One player only, this game really is the sequel to Asteroids in every way, and most of them very good. The color vector graphics are not really affected by the monitor brightness, and the controls feel right. I play the untethered mode only, and the game is missing the two-player simultaneous mode from the arcade, but as a spiritual successor to Asteroids, it's quite a great game, even in the single-player mode. I find myself coming back to this one all the time. Super Breakout. I think this might have been the first arcade game I ever played in the arcade, and all attempts to recreate it via MAME and titles like Atari Vault have fallen flat. The controls are just not right. This version uses the spinner control, and it feels nearly perfect. To me anyway. So good in fact that all my thoughts of the controls were removed, and I was left with the idea that this game is really, really hard, and the sounds are at once both grating and enthralling. Also, progressive mode is the best mode. Tempest. This was the big test. Like Super Breakout, Tempest simply can't be played without the proper controls. I'm happy to say the spinner works brilliantly for this game, at least to me. I love it. I no longer have the deep urge in my gut to go play Tempest properly in the arcade. I feel like this version is the best one I've played, save for an actual arcade machine. The monitor works well for this game too. This game is hardcore, and I think it's successful here on this machine. Akka R. This game is unreleased, but is super compelling. It's sort of a Star Castle where you play the Star Castle, but that's not all. First, you defend your area by shooting at the zones that enemies are currently flying over. If you hit the area, all the enemies are hit and destroyed. But if an enemy gets through, you fight a close-up battle. It's quite compelling and worth playing to see just how much depth there is. The zoom button is essential as it takes you in between the two different screens. This is a really cool game. It's a little complicated for the era it came from, but I think that was a mistake for Atari to never release it. Asteroids Deluxe, the final game of the collection. Controls feel nice, just like Asteroids, but again, just like Asteroids, unless you are in the absolute perfect conditions, the UFO shots can be very difficult to see. But to be honest, the shots come so fast, and the UFOs are so lethal, there usually is no way to dodge them anyway, but it does suck to be hit instantly and not know exactly where the final lethal shot came from. I do enjoy playing this, but it does suffer from the monitor. So, I do love this product, and I play the crap out of it. I play it all the time. I especially love Space Duel, as now I see it as the proper successor to Asteroids. Tempest, because the controls feel the best I've ever felt for a game outside the arcade. And Millipede, because I've discovered that it's intensely addictive. The Wi-Fi connected high score system is a nice touch, and it does draw me back to try out my best high scores. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, the monitor. This video is from my daytime attempt to record the screen. Pretty much the same angle, yet you can see heavy reflections, and the screen has a bluish tint from the monitor backlight. Something is wrong with this monitor. If you have a stool, consider the optimal angle, and the room is dark. Asteroids and Asteroids Deluxe do work. The UFO shots are still hard to see, but are visible. If you're not at the optimal angle, you may find yourself wondering why you instantly got killed by an invisible shot. Instead of just complaining online though, I made a customer support request to Arcade1up. Because I know they have Wi-Fi, I wanted to know if they could do an over-the-air software update to allow for controlling of the monitor brightness via the options for each game. At first, they brushed me off with a monitor is as monitor does response. However, I was not satisfied with that. You see, I've seen Asteroids and Asteroids Deluxe played on a computer monitor, and when a glow filter is applied to the rasterized vector output, you can see the entire game. You see this when playing the games on Atari Vault for Windows and Steam. I pointed this out to customer service, and while they still said they could do nothing, they did send me a free t-shirt for my troubles. I kept the shirt and I wore it in hopes that my goodwill will get them to make the proper fixes to the software. Because I still think a software update addressing the brightness and adding optional software filters to the display could solve this problem for them, and I hope they take this advice to heart and try to find some solution. Still, the product has me enthralled with Atari coin-op games again, and I love it. Yes, it could be better, but my review score stands at 80%. I love the product and play it often, but it could still use updates to make it the product it so wants to be.
Into the vertical blank, Generation Atari.